Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. All right, let's get into this topic. As you guys know, the Lakers fired Darvin Ham at the end of this season. This season it just concluded. It was a controversial decision, a decision that got a lot of people upset. Various analysts and former players, current players were all upset at the Lakers deciding to make that decision. Darvin Ham at the time had only been a coach for 2 years in the NBA, although he was an assistant coach under, I think, Mike Budenholzer and the Milwaukee Bucks. So when he joined the Lakers, I guess the Lakers thought that he had a lot of promise and all of that. But as usual with the Lakers and the pressure that comes with coaching that organization and the media attention that surrounds it, when the Lakers weren't doing good, Darvin Ham was constantly under the hot seat. Then you started hearing things like he was losing the locker room, players weren't listening to him. And then a bunch of different things were happening under his watch where it was very difficult for a rookie head coach to manage. Think about this. He was in a situation where he had to manage situations like having Russell Westbrook on the roster with LeBron James, with Anthony Davis. And he was basically tasked with trying to find a way to make all of that work. And I think at one point during his first year as a Lakers head coach, people were saying that Russell Westbrook should come off the bench. And Darvin Ham was the one that ultimately had to go break the news to Russell Westbrook with him going to the bench. That first year as the Lakers head coach, somehow, some way, they ended up making it to the Western Conference. No. Yeah, that first year. And yeah, I think that was the year they traded Russell Westbrook. I think he was the Lakers head coach for 2 or 3 years, but I think it was 2 years. They ended up trading Russell Westbrook at the trade deadline. Darvin Ham then, of course, Westbrook was the Lakers for a year and a half. So at the trade deadline, then they made some moves in the trade deadline, and they were able to catapult themselves by getting players like Rui Hachimura and others, catapult themselves into the Western Conference Finals, where they ultimately got swept by the eventual NBA champion, Denver Nuggets, who ultimately went on to win the NBA championship. But first year with the team, you get the team to the Western Conference Finals, pretty impressive, and you end up losing to the eventual NBA champions. The next season, more stress, more pressure, and then we were hearing midway through the season that Darvin Ham may get fired. We're hearing that players weren't listening to him. You saw the star player of the team, the leader of the team, LeBron James, publicly disrespecting him, which I thought was pretty crazy. And you could basically see that the players had no confidence in him. They get to the playoffs, and the first team that they end up playing is who? The Denver Nuggets again, who end up beating them in 5 games. Jamal Murray had 2 game winners. One was a buzzer beater. The other one was a game winner. And at the end of that series, we got wind that Darvin Ham was ultimately going to be fired and to be replaced by J.J. Redick. So what happened? A story came out yesterday that was centered on some comments that former Laker Patrick Beverley had to make about a conversation that he had with Darvin Ham, where Darvin Ham was essentially apologizing for not practicing the team, making the team go through enough practices. And then there was a plot twist towards the end where he was even looking for ways to get in contact with Russell Westbrook, who the Lakers organization disrespected to the high heavens. He was looking to get into contact with him to make amends for how things ended with Russell Westbrook. So let's get into this article here. And it started off saying, former Lakers coach Darvin Ham apologized to Patrick Beverley for not running enough practices. Article continues on. In the chat on his podcast, NBA veteran Patrick Beverley looked back on a conversation he had with former Lakers coach Darvin Ham. According to Pat, Darvin approached him in Las Vegas and apologized for some of his choices while he was running the locker room. I'm in Vegas, I'm gambling, and I see Coach Ham walk past. Mind you, I ain't seen Coach Ham on a personal level since I left the Lakers, said Beverley on his podcast. Coach Ham come up to me. I don't know his move. He's like, can I have 5 minutes? I just want to let you know, Pat, I apologize. Oh, bleep. You know, as a coach, you're never supposed to apologize. The decision you make is the decision you make, he says. I apologize, Pat. You was right. Need to practice more. F that. We need to do more. Can't just win off of talent. He had a lot on his plate as a first-year coach. You got Russ, you got AD, LeBron. He's not going to listen to Patrick Beverley. Then continues on. There was a point last season when Beverley, a 12-year veteran, was pushing the Lakers to practice more in order to build chemistry and correct some of their bad habits. Instead, Darvin Ham elected to operate on a light practice schedule to preserve health and energy for real games. And then later on, it basically said that in the midst of him saying that, he also tried to reach out to Russell Westbrook. He asked Patrick Beverley for Russell Westbrook's phone number to reach out to him, to apologize to him for how things went there. So what are my thoughts? So Darvin Ham goes up to Patrick Beverley to apologize for not practicing the team more, right? And the reason he did not want to practice the team more was because he wanted to conserve their energy for games. Now, the operative question becomes, why would he do that? Why would that be his philosophy? Well, let's look at the makeup of the Lakers' key players, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. LeBron James was an older player. I don't know if you guys know this, but older players generally don't practice more, right? I remember hearing so many stories of Kobe. Kobe at times wouldn't even practice in certain cases. He would direct practice. He would almost be like an assistant coach on the floor, right? So certain players, they don't practice them as much, especially when they're older, in order to preserve their legs for NBA games. So that was something that Phil Jackson used to do with Kobe Bryant. So I don't think that Darvin Ham's decision there was controversial whatsoever. The second person we have to look at is Anthony Davis. What do we know about Anthony Davis? He's a great player, versatile player, talented player, but we also know that he's very injury prone, right? And at any moment, Anthony Davis could get injured. So if you put a lot of wear and tear on his body, chances are he could break down in the middle of a game. As a matter of fact, Anthony Davis would just get injured out of nowhere, even with less practice. So from that standpoint, I can understand Darvin Ham's philosophy. Now, hindsight is, of course, 2020. Going back in retrospect, looking at things that you did, you can say, okay, maybe I would have did this better. Maybe I would have done that better. Maybe that's where Darvin Ham was. He was introspective and thinking about those things, and then decided to reach out. Decided to explain those things to Patrick Beverley. In terms of Russell Westbrook, look, Darvin Ham and the Lakers organization disrespected Russell Westbrook. And it's not even a question, right? It's not even a question. They disrespected a future Hall of Fame NBA player, and Darvin Ham played a role because ultimately he was the one disseminating that message. Whether it was his views or other views, he was the one disseminating the message. I want to quickly read from a Sports Illustrated article, and it says here, Russell Westbrook's ex-Lakers teammate reveals Darvin Ham wants to apologize. Let me continue on. 9-time NBA All-Star Russell Westbrook signed with the Denver Nuggets earlier this summer after 3 seasons in his hometown between the Los Angeles Lakers and LA Clippers. Traded to the Lakers in 2021, Russell Westbrook played 130 games for LA before he was dealt to the Utah Jazz. Westbrook played under 2 different coaches with the Lakers as 2020 NBA championship Frank Vogel, who was let go for Darvin Ham in the summer of 2022. Ham was the first coach to move Westbrook to the bench, where the 2017 league MVP quickly broke the NBA's all-time record for triple doubles as a reserve. During a recent episode of his podcast, Patrick Beverley for Barstools, former Lakers guard Patrick Beverley revealed a conversation he had with Ham at NBA Summer League. According to Beverley, Ham apologized to him and also wants to apologize to Russell Westbrook as well. While we was at Summer League in Vegas, I saw Coach Ham walk past. Beverley said, I haven't seen him in a long time. He then fast forward and says, I apologize. And then, he said, it's a lot going on fast. You ain't going to listen to Pat Beverley. Beverley said, not at this time. And then he said, praising Ham for apologizing. Beverley said that it's a difficult thing to do as a coach. A 12-year NBA veteran then revealed Ham wants to apologize to Westbrook. Then he hit me at the end, Beverley said. He was like, You got Russ' number. I want to reach out to him too, right? To me, look, Darvin Ham was in a very, very difficult spot. Very, very difficult spot. And he was tasked with handling a toxic situation. And I think he did the best that he could under the given circumstances, under the circumstances that the fact that the star players didn't even respect him. They didn't even respect him, but still, he was able to coach that team to 2 consecutive playoff appearances. And they played the NBA champs pretty tough. But they went against a tougher team. And to me, what really surprises me is the following. What were the Lakers expecting? They were going against a more talented team with a better player, best player, in Nikola Jokic. So what exactly were you expecting Darvin Ham to do? Darvin Ham did the best that he could. But the disconnect lies in the expectations or the unrealistic expectations by Laker Nation versus the reality of where the team was as a unit. Lakers were expecting the team to be at least contending for an NBA championship. That's what they expected. But the reality was they were not better than the Denver Nuggets. Now, who do you blame for the Lakers' expectations? You blame that on the media, because the media are the one that are constantly hyping up the Lakers. And the Laker fan base buys into it. And then they think that this team is better than what they really are. And when they go out there and they don't live up to the expectations, they become disappointed. And I think that the Lakers organization does a role by playing into all of this, right? There have been a lot of moves that have been made by the Lakers over the last few years. It leaves a lot of people scratching their heads like, well, who's running this team? The Lakers are one of the most disorganized franchises in the entire NBA. In the entire NBA, based off of the decisions that they've been making. And now they're hiring another rookie head coach who one could make an argument is even worse than Darvin Ham, because at least Darvin Ham had some level of experience that we could point to by being an assistant head coach in the NBA. JJ Redick is prolific at talking basketball on television. Before we produce this show, we put up a poll on our channel. You guys can go ahead and vote on it. And this is what the poll read. It said, who's going to have a better record as a Lakers coach? Out of the 553 voters in 30 minutes, 24% are voting for JJ Redick. 76% are voting for Darvin Ham. Some people will say, one person will JJ Redick will make it to the finals in his first season to surpass Ham. Another person said, we know who the real coach is right now. And some other people weighed in on the poll as well. Look, Darvin Ham was put in a tough spot. I don't know what maybe he needs to apologize to the players, and maybe that's what he feels like. But I think that the Lakers owe him an apology as well, because they treated the guy like trash from top to bottom. And I don't understand the decision-making process that the Lakers have been using. I don't know what kind of, I don't know what system they're using to make decisions, because you go fire a coach that at least has some coaching experience for a coach that's never coached anywhere. And what makes it crazy is that in the midst of the season, knowing that they were basically done with Darvin Ham, LeBron is doing a show with another guy talking about X's and O's, who ultimately ends up being the guy that ends up becoming a head coach. Right? So it's a total mess. And if I'm giving you my honest opinion, I think this mess is going to continue this season. I think that this is going to be one of the most drama-packed seasons for the Los Angeles Lakers probably in the last 10 years. I think it's going to be nothing but drama, and I'm going to tell you why before we close out. Number one, you have the factor of LeBron James and whatever drama that brings with him. Then you have the expectations for the team, which are the Lakers going to be championship contenders? Can the Lakers win the championship? Then you're going to have JJ Redick in the mix, right? With his cantankerous self, who's always ready to curse and holler and fight with whomever. You have that as well. And then you have the Bronny James element in all of this. These are all of the various storylines that are going to be surrounding the Lakers this season. And I think it's going to be the minute the Lakers start losing, the drama will ensue. And from that point on, is going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big game of pointing fingers, who to blame, who to blame, who to blame, who to blame. It's going to be crazy. It looks like we got some pretty big news coming out of the hallways of ESPN. As you guys know, over the last year and a half, ESPN has been doing some serious cord cutting. The last time they went through some cord cutting, cost cutting, they fired some pretty big names. They fired Max Kellerman. They fired Jalen Rose. They fired Mark Jackson. They fired Jeff Van Gundy, just to list a few, right? And a lot of people were discussing this, but in the aftermath of that, people like Stephen A. Smith and others said that this isn't the first time that something like this has occurred, and it certainly won't be the last time, right? So he said that for people to be like, okay, look, I know some of you guys are surprised, but this shouldn't shock you if this occurs again in the future. Now, what the specific financials of ESPN, what they are, I really don't know. I know that they're in negotiation with Stephen A. Smith to extend his contract. I think they probably have, because now he's back at working at ESPN. I think the figure he requested over the next 5 years was $125 million. It was either $100 million or $125 million over the next 5 years. So he's back on the show. I'm probably assuming that maybe they came to some sort of agreement. And if they're getting rid of all of those other people, chances are they want to keep their most high profile analysts at the network, like the Pat McAfee's and others. They just brought in Shannon Sharp into the fold of ESPN First Take. He has a contract with them, so one would assume that Stephen A. Smith is going to get an extension as well, and if he doesn't, I'm going to be absolutely floored. So yesterday, Mitch, who works with us, sent an article to the group chat, and essentially it was a Front Office Sports article that had the headline saying ESPN cuts Robert Griffin III, Sam Ponder, and cost-cutting moves. And I was like, wow. By the time it came across my desk, it was much later in the day, so we weren't going to shoot any content. Yes, yesterday we had about 4 shows that we produced, so I was like, no, we're probably going to touch on this the following day. So let me get into what this article had to say. It continues on. First the insult, then the injury. Months after ESPN demoted former NFL quarterback Robert Griffin III from its Monday night's countdown team, the networks fired him. Griffin and Sam Ponder, the host of Sunday NFL Countdown, both lost their jobs on Thursday. The news was first reported by The Athletic. Griffin, who last played in the NFL in 2020, had 2 years left on his deal. As is usually the case in high-profile talent layoffs, ESPN will still pay out his contract. A source familiar with the move called it a straight business decision amid cost-cutting. Though both parties are still owed money on their contracts, they could be offset in place if they were hired elsewhere. Griffin, in particular, is certain to be in high demand. Fox Sports was said to be interested when he was ultimately hired by ESPN in 2020. ESPN decided to replace Griffin with Jason Kelsey on Countdown months ago. Griffin was set to receive an NFL-level salary while working college games this fall. After the news broke, Griffin posted a clip from the movie Friday where John Witherspoon's character asks Ice Cube, how the hell you going to get fired on your day off? Ponder was a longtime ESPN fixture, starting at the company in 2011 and working her way up to a Sunday NFL Countdown host in 2017. She had hosted the show for the last 6 years. Countdown was slated to be her only role at the network in 2024. Ponder reportedly agreed to a 3-year, $3 million deal in 2022. So you heard the article. Robert Griffin seems to have some humor. That was a classic line in Friday that I'm sure some of us saw hundreds of times, that movie, right? What are my thoughts on this? Well, I don't know what RG3's contract is, but her contract is what, $3 million? So ESPN wants to make a $3 million savings. What I could think is that maybe whoever they're looking to replace her, they're probably going to get her cheaper. Usually that's what happens, right? Usually when companies make these high profile layoffs and they're firing people that earn a lot of money in their company, usually what happens is the people that they replace them with, they're going to pay them a lower salary and then pay them that salary as time goes on, and then their salary matures based on their tenure at the network, and then probably go out there and get somebody else new or whatever, and just repeat the process all over. It's a way of saving costs, right? Companies do it, all the time, right? They just replace you for someone else to come in and fill that role and do it for much cheaper, right? Especially when they're getting their start in that particular organization. So you have that there as well. You also heard the article mention something interesting, which was networks like Fox Sports were actually looking at RG3 back in 2020. Why is this information pertinent? Because, as you guys know, Skip Bayless is no longer going to be working at FS1. Undisputed, as a matter of fact, is going to be canceled, which means that there's some open roster spots. The show that is going to be replaced with Undisputed, we don't know the name yet, but we know some of the people that are going to be working on the show. Articles and various sources have alluded to the fact that Chicago radio personality Danny Parkins could be there. We also heard names like Emmanuel Acho. Emmanuel Acho, funny enough, is very polarizing. For whatever reason, some people don't like Emmanuel Acho. He's gotten into various spats of various people on the internet. I don't think that RG3 is a polarizing figure, and I'm sure that, look, if he's going to be available, maybe they may be able to bring him into the fold. Obviously, the article also pointed out something that I just want to quickly I want to quickly go back to. Speaking about his salary, let me just get back to that part where I read it. Okay, listen to this. It says Griffin, in particular, is certain to be in high demand. Fox Sports is said to be interested when he was ultimately hired in 2020, and then it said that the article says something about if they hired him, that would be able to offset his salary. So if ESPN is going to continue to pay him, then the new company may be able to cover the cost of whatever his contract is going to be, right? So you have that as well. It may be FS1 is willing to pay the number. We don't know what the number is. I certainly don't know what the number is. But really, look, this really shows you how fluid the sports world was RG3. The sports world is. Right? It just really shows you that, look, things are changing quickly. I think that's why you see a lot of guys out there starting their own shows, doing their own thing outside these networks to have a safety net. And I think that anybody that's in the sports media space, especially if you're on television, that's serious, most likely is going to have something to fall back on, have a podcast or something like that. And one can make an argument that's what saved people like Shannon Sharpe. Imagine if Shannon Sharpe, his only thing that he was doing was Undisputed. That's why I never believed in people that tell you just do one thing and do that one thing only. No, I don't believe in that. Things happen. Things can change. The world changes. You got to have options. I don't believe just going all in on one thing and not having other things that you're doing on the side, unless you plan to work 24 hours a day in that one particular thing. I don't believe in that. I believe that you diversify yourself and just be ready to adjust whenever things happen, right? And Shannon Sharpe serves as a perfect example of someone that did that. Undisputed said, look, we're no longer going to be working with you. He had already been building something on the side with Club Shay Shay. He was able to transition into that beautifully. He didn't rest on his laurels. They went out there and did Nightcap, and with what is it? I can't remember his co-host's name. They started doing that together, and then now before you know it, it became a major asset of his that actually catapulted him into being in a place where he was making more money, talking about sports and news and what's happening in the culture than he was ever making when he was an professional NFL player, right? So maybe RG3 is doing something like that. I just YouTube something. I see a channel. I'm trying to look for a channel of RG3, whether or not he has his own YouTube page. I don't know that yet. Maybe he has his own podcast. I don't know that yet. I guess we have to wait and see. But hey, this is how things happen, and this is the world that we're living in right now. And I guess everybody should just, be prepared to, if one thing happens, be prepared to be able to do something else.